I hashtag you.
Okay.
He's like, I'm not on Twitter, so whatever.
Michael James Dodson.
All right. Thanks for the pic that you chose of me for this.
Oh, I didn't do that. That was the Grumblers.
Oh, really? Wow.
That must be the picture that's the only one out there of you.
It's like
No,
an old,
I've seen it a couple places.
yeah, it's like an old Facebook picture, but it's not even, yeah.
Must be coming up at first in the Google search.
I was going to say.
Fantastic.
That's what came up with the Google search. I found this photo of Michael Dodson at his school. It's his school photo. It's great.
That's crazy.
You know you can handle middle school when and all that comes with it.
I thought it was amazing because he's a teacher, and everywhere I taught in North Carolina, they required a tie. Dave has some good stories about this and how I resolved these issues. But in North Carolina, they required a tie. So when I came up to Maryland, everyone's like, Mr. Peck, a tie, what's going on? And then,
I remember you used to wear a tie once in a while.
In North Carolina, it was required every day.
I would go down to his classroom. He'd have on a polo, like a polo, buttoned all the way up, black tie. I was like, what's up with that? And he's like, my principal said that you have to wear a tie. He didn't say what kind. He didn't say that it had to make any damn sense. There was one time I went in there, he had a t-shirt on, tie. He's like, said I had to wear a tie. Didn't say I had to have a collar too.
Yep.
Didn't say it.
Right.
So you've seen the jumpsuit. I got this jumpsuit. I did a cutoff. I tore it so it was just like this. It was a shirt. I put a tie on it so I could wear the jumpsuit and get paint all over me when the kids were painting, and they wouldn't paint me. So it was just torn just enough so I had the collar and the tie, and I would put that on and be in like shorts and undies, pull on my jumpsuit, teach all day. Of course with shoes too, but you got your onesie on, you're ready to go. North Carolina, if you're male or male presenting, you got to wear a tie.
So Eric, another question.
Yeah.
So I've got like my home column, and then I've got the K-12 art chat column right next to it.
Yeah.
So when I want to send a message or answer a question, if I hit that new tweet, is that automatically going to show up? I just have to make sure that I've put the hashtag.
Yeah, and what you can do is like if you're responding to like a particular question, you could hit the reply, the little
Right, on
bubble.
that particular question.
Yeah.
The little quote bubble.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
then you'll type in your tweet, and then you could just put the K-12 art chat hashtag and then hit the tweet button underneath. So, and then it tweets out.
Okay. So if it's already, if I'm responding to something that's already coming into the hashtag K-12 art chat, it'll automatically go there? Or do you still have to add?
You still want to add the hashtag.
Okay, got it.
Because that's how people are following the chat.
Got it. I'm just
And
making
and
sure.
people won't see your response.
Got it. So how are your teachers responding to all this, Michael?
They're freaking out.
Yeah.
But part of the reason they're freaking out is because, I mean, no one really knows for sure what's going on.
Right. And is there a central person that's kind of trying to drive it all for you guys, or?
Well, yeah, it's the Oregon Department of Ed, but like, I mean, I feel like every 24 hours is like a month. I mean, the amount of stuff that happens.
Yeah.
So we went back to work. We went back to work on Monday. We did like a whole series of Zoom meetings, like as a staff, and then we did team meetings in Zoom, and then we broke off and did some other stuff and did a little PD around that. And then we had this contact list of families that we were supposed to reach out to get some critical information about resources they needed. If they wanted Chromebooks, do they Are they needing like organ health plan stuff? All these questions. And then in the middle of that, like as we're working, like teachers, because we're all part of the union, we start getting these emails from our district unions and the state union updating stuff. And it's like the stuff that they're asking us to do right at that second is no longer important. It's like,
Right.
okay, now we've switched. And in fact, it's looking like we are not going to be physically back in the building at all this year. So we're going to be switching over from this plan to this plan, and it happens April 13th. So then we're coming back to our principals and people in the district and saying, hey, this is the stuff we're getting. And our principals are saying, let's just stick with this plan because we haven't heard anything different. And we're like, but we already know. Like, so then of course, the next day we come back and they're like, yeah, so it turns out that, and we're like, we told you this yesterday. So it's just a really like, it feels surreal because it's like, we're just kind of doing some busy work until they can figure out what we're doing. And I don't know that that's ever really going to happen to any substantial way. I mean, they even acknowledge the fact, like ODE says, we realize that anything we do is going to be, you know, is really just not going to be that good. You know, it's going to be pretty crappy, but we got to do something. So it's just a weird, I don't know. There's so many unknowns, you know, it's like just living in the unknown, but trying to produce something in the unknown. It's odd.
Who you drawing, Sam? All of us?
I'm drawing you.
Just so you guys know, right now,
What's that?
if we wouldn't, right now, if we had not been in this situation, I'd be on an airplane.
Mhm. Oh, there you go. They've got it starting out now.
Kick it
We're the
off.
journal crew.
Ready to go.
Let's see.
It's gonna be
Hold on.
fast and furious.
You
Yep.
can do it all the time. At least those above my pay grade seem to think so.
That's right.
That's right, Dave.
I'm on sabbatical, and I will just not kid you right now how many damn emails I still get. With the expectation that I take care of it. I'm like, I thought I was on sabbatical. Thought I didn't have to do that. But no.
Well, see, all your plans got canceled, so you know, now you have the time to take care of it.
Yeah, well, I got some choice words for those people.
Off
I was
the
just
air.
winding down my
Repeat.
winding down my spot on OAEA, like president of Oregon Art Education Association. And my last week my last gig would have been Minneapolis, the conference. So our week of spring break was the week before we officially went back on only in online. And so I spent most of spring break in meetings with ODE because they were asking about like, so what do we do for visual arts? It's like, you should have been asking us this a long time ago.
That's right. Hello.
Hey, Sam, can you tweet out the link to the YouTube video?
I just did
Okay.
a second ago.
Okay. Matt Grundler was just.
All right, are they kicking off the first question, or are we doing the Q1?
They usually post it up.
Okay.
Let's
Think
see
I
if
saw.
the YouTube video is actually working. See if I can pull it up on my phone. Nope.
I mean, for our recording, do we just all, I mean,
Well, I mean, we could go ahead and start
say a
talking
couple of-
about.
yeah. I
Yeah,
could
we're going to talk
say-
about it, but we're going to have to tweet about it. Otherwise, the conversation won't move anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what
I'm
was the
just
first
waiting.
question?
Well, the first question was about the difference What are the differences between a traditional sketchbook, visual journal, diaries? How do you effectively transition from one to the other? And I would say we could all just throw some
Pilot.
conversation in there.
It's the live YouTube recording is happening. It's just there's a delay.
That's okay. This way you can bleep out all of Sam's curse words on here.
But yeah. So what was the first question, Dave? You want to reiterate so we can get on there?
Sure. So the question that I put in was, what are the differences between a traditional sketchbook and/or in a visual journal, diary? How do you effectively transition from one to the other? And I mean, my main perspective on it is what I think you guys already know, but when I think of traditional sketchbooks, I think of that teacher directed activity. When I think of visual journals or visual diaries, I'm thinking of more of a student directed activity. And what tends to happen in that traditional mode is it becomes that planning space. It's that thing that you're working in with the idea that, well, what I'm making here or thinking about here in this book is going to create larger work later. And that the real art is the work that's going to be put in the frame. It's the work that's going to be on the canvas. The work that's in the sketchbook. These are just ideas. This is just, tooling around with some ideas. This isn't art. And I think that it is. And I think that when you start to think about the difference between that traditional sketchbook format and the visual journal or visual diary, you can start to break through that wall a little bit. And, my personal experience being an art maker, freshman, I've told this story many times, but freshman drawing class, being given the assignment, right? The first day of class, you go buy a sketchbook, and at midterm, which will be in October, you bring that sketchbook, you need to have 50 drawings in it, using the materials and the concepts that we've talked about in class, and you submit it with the work that you've done in the class up to that point in the semester. And I did the same thing. I sat there and I went and bought a sketchbook with all the intentions of doing these drawings. And the night before the critique, I made 50 drawings in my sketchbook. And the reason I think that happened was I just saw that as another thing I had to do for my teacher. I didn't see that as part of my creative process. I saw it as a thing, as a product. And so that's one of the things that I see as a major difference for me. Product versus process. Visual journal is a process. It's nonlinear, it's ongoing. Sketchbook tends to be overly directed by the teacher, with artificial deadlines for things, with the idea that it's a planning space that's going to lead to bigger things. And I think the visual journal does all those things. Like, I really think the visual journal is like an umbrella, and all these kinds of the sketchbook, different other interactive notebooks all fall under that umbrella and can be seen that way. Altered books, all those things. So that's one thing. And then I would say the secondary thing is sketchbooks tend to be mostly visual. They're drawings, sketches, doodles, schematics, mock-ups, however we want to look at it. Might have some writing that may be more captions or more sort of directional kinds of things, the sizes of something, the spaces. Whereas I think when you move to the visual journal format, that idea of a writing journal becomes more about what you're thinking. It becomes more reflective. The documentation works in with your language literacy and your visual literacy, and those things come together in that space. So
Nice.
in a nutshell,
Hey, David,
that's what I would say.
what's your Twitter on here? Is it Dr. Modler?
Dr. Modler. Yeah.
That's it. All right.
David Robert Modler.
Doctor.
I just say doctor. The doctor's in the house. The
Doctor's in the
Dr.
house.
Modler. All right. I just shared similar sentiments with you.
Okay. Nice.
For me, it's all about the, a traditional sketchbook, like you said, when you have the one thing where, like, if you said I need to do 50, maybe I want to do 51, just be competitive. What's it? But that visual diary, it's a very personal form of expressing your inner world, which is
Mhm.
right now. I mean, I think that's what kids need more than anything, a place to deposit all of this, everything that they're still, like all of us, are very uncertain about what's the future look like, what's the future of art look like. I mean, it's a very we're in some uncharted waters, but as artists, we're always the ones that step up to the plate and rise to the forefront in times like these first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's you can look back. I mean, this pandemic that's occurring right now, a lot of people have been comparing it to the pandemic 100 years ago. Pandemic during and right after World War One, and you can think about a lot of the work that surrealists and the Dadaists did at that time. It was all direct responses to the effects of that war and that thing that was happening to society and culture. And I always think about some of the like kind of automatron type sculptural things that were done to sort of discuss, and drawings as well, but even the exquisite corpse, to sort of discuss that fragmentation of our ideals and culture, and the way we thought about things. And we thought everything was one way, and then all of a sudden it was a completely different way. We seem to repeat a lot of those sort of patterns, but I think you're right. It's like the artists are the ones that come
Okay,
forward and start making
just-
some of those
I don't know if
discussions.
you guys just saw Laura Grundler's answer to that question. She said, a sketchbook is more of a place to practice drawing. Visual journals are a visual expression of daily life. It's where I vomit feelings and thoughts. It's part of my daily life, and it goes everywhere. I specifically buy a journal that fits in my purse. So that I just liked how she said, where I vomit feelings and thoughts.
Nice.
Well, and I like that idea too, that, she carries a journal that fits in her purse. I think that, there's many different types. I mean, I think all of us, all five of us, we have a really big journal. We have the big 11 by 14 inch Blick journal. And we also have the mini ones that we can carry with us, so we can open them up wherever we are. And like your guys' mantra has been with Tetrad, the draw and play here, where we'll draw with anybody, anywhere, about anything. So it's important.
What if we, could I pose sort of a way to kind of maybe look at this in a slightly different lens, just even just for a little bit of the conversation? And that is, so there are clear differences that I think we all, for the most part, agree with, in terms of what's the difference between a sketchbook and a visual journal. But I wonder if does anyone have anything to say about, because I know I do, a little bit about like how one maybe plays into the other, or how one might benefit from the other, both ways. The reason I'm asking this is because as a middle school teacher, and there are K-12 teachers out there right now who are wondering, so I want to do visual journals in my class, but it
Right.
makes me nervous just to open it up completely to my students. I wonder about how, what is this going to look like in my room if it's completely driven by them? And so they may back away from this.
Right. I hear you. And I think when I think of the difference between teacher directed and student directed, it isn't that the teacher is absent and it's just like, here's a blank book, make what you want.
No, definitely.
I think prompts can still play in that space. And I think the teacher can still work as a facilitator of what's going on. I think a question that's going to come up a little bit later is this concept of being, how do you model these ideas? Eric brought that question forward for us later in the talk. But I think you need to be an active participant. You can't just be behind your desk telling the students what to put in their sketchbook and not actually doing it yourself. I think leading by example is really important. And then I think too, it's traditional sketchbook, what I was sort of like hinting at. I think when I think of K-12, it's sort of, there's something that's very specific that the teacher is expecting to see. And the teacher may even go as far as sort of showing the student, like, here's the idea I want you to work on, here's what it should look like. And not allowing the student to have that choice of like, well, what direction do I want to take it in? So I think you can still give ideas and prompts, something conceptual, something stylistic, and let the kids kind of run with it. You know, like anything you teach, I'm going to probably demo some materials and some techniques before they do it. But, you know, go ahead and have at it. And don't be afraid to add to that when you get home. Don't be afraid like to allow something else from your private personal life to kind of creep into it. Whereas sometimes the sketchbook tends to close itself off. This is just about school. This is just about what we're doing in our class. Whereas, you know, letting the kid maybe kind of roll with those ideas, and how do you take that into more of a personal direction and conversation? That's again, I'm kind of starting to cut into Eric's question for a little bit later, but
That's all right.
it's
I think it all goes together.
yeah.
So they
I
have
think
asked a
that's it.
second question now, just if we wanted to shift gears.
Mhm.
So what are some ways, this was Sam's question, what are some ways that the visual journal could be used as a research, data collection, and or an assessment tool?
I just want to talk about the ways that we are using it in Tetrad. You know, so it's got multiple uses. It goes in many directions. I'm eating tangerines at the same time, so pardon me for a second. But I just want to talk about the visual journal as a collection of data. You know, like Laura Grunler was saying, you know, the visual journal can be a place where people put so much into it. But I think there's something about the ways that that is done that can be very specific to every individual, and how much you decide to put in one format or another can really speak to you as an artist and your way of expressing yourself or thinking creatively. And I think the more that we can engender or empower our students to make those decisions and to use that, I think can be a really amazing tool. But the way that that can also speak to the many facets of how we see ourselves. There's a methodology that I like to refer to, and I know there's a bunch of people in this group who think and act in this way. It's called artography, ARTography, and it's A, artist, R, researcher, T, teacher. So artist, researcher, teacher, ography. So the study of how all those identities are all at once, all the same thing, rather than switching the hats in an Edward de Bono type way and lateral thinking and switching back and forth. You were always already all those things. And I just want to talk about how the visual journal as an artifact, as a document, as a data source can be that thing that demonstrates how that's happening. Because I think on any page through any of our visual journals, small, large, etc., there's so many great examples of how we're thinking about, how do I use this as a teacher for my students or with my students? How can we employ this and take it out or take it in? How can the things that I'm making as examples in my classroom go into here and then be a reference tool that I go back to? You know, like Michael is done in his classroom. I know for a fact because we've talked about it, that he's, you know, his principals asked, you know, how do you do assessment? He's like, oh, it's right here. It's in the visual journal. I know I did a lot of the same. I know Dave does it. I know Michael's done it. I know Eric did it when he was teaching. But it becomes a way for the whole student to be the evidence of that student to come forward. So I just wanted to speak of that for a nugget of a second. I'd love to hear how you all are thinking about that, because this is something that's always running through my brain as I start to work on my dissertation here at the University of Minnesota. And I think about the visual journal more and more.
Well, I just posted something on Twitter for you guys. Dave, if you can see it, it was, I remember when your student searched me up on question 2 for research, and they did a 2-page spread.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought that that was so effective. I know that Laura's moving forward already with question
Right.
3. This is going to be fast and furious,
Yeah.
so we're going to have to pick up the pace here. But if you guys can check out that picture, I saved it.
Yeah.
It was from your talk.
Yeah, yeah. So I was a graduate student, and the assignment was only that they had to, it was in a visual journal class, and they had to pick a artist that they wanted to that used the visual journal in their practice, and how they wanted, and they needed to just sort of use their visual journal in a way to create a 2-page or multi-page spread about that person. So the research that student did. And they even called you, didn't she? I think she called you
Yeah,
or
she did.
emailed
She
you.
contacted me.
Right,
Yeah, she wanted to do a little like personal research too. She wanted to connect with
right.
me, and we found we had some very similar things in common, which was
Mhm,
interesting. So
mhm,
yeah, she was a good kid.
mhm.
Holly Bess Kincaid said sketchbook is more of a place to process ideas and develop imagery, while I feel a visual diary is either more sequential or personal.
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be some sequential nature to it. My practice tends to be more, a little bit non-linear. Um, but I think I could look at, I mean, I'm working in my 33rd book right now. So it's sort of, I could probably look at it as volumes, or almost like
Yeah,
chapters in the
volumes.
story,
Yeah.
volumes and chapters in a story. So I can see um, the sequential kind of nature to it. And I think that too kind of goes to sometimes hearing someone talk about that they had their students do visual journals, where it's like, like it's something like, oh, we did that as an assignment, and now we're done. And it isn't something that continues. And it then again takes the visual journal in this space where maybe some of the techniques and processes were explored, but it was a terminal activity. And I think it's something that needs to continue. It shouldn't be something that stops.
Terry Sirocco said, I use the sketchbook or thumbnails on projects. Excuse me. Answer 1, I use the sketchbook for thumbnails on projects. The visual journal is more spontaneous, creativity and experimentation. Eric, what do you think about that?
I'm sorry, it was sketchbook, using it for thumbnails and planning, and journal as, what was it?
Journal is more spontaneous, creativity and experimentation.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, really, I think there's a lot more spontaneity in a visual journal. Um, I think, and this kind of goes back to what Michael Dotson was talking about, that notion of how it can be sort of a space that isn't just all personal, all the like student driven, student directed, that, there's some teacher guidance in there. So I think that a journal is a perfect place to do sketches. And actually somebody else had written something similar about how they felt like a journal was, that a sketchbook was more kind of like, for planning and all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, why can't the journal be both? Like, the journal can be both a place for planning and sketching and developing ideas, but it can also be that place to reflect, to put the personal, to document your everyday life. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think that's the beautiful part of the visual journal, is that it is an everything book. And I always come back to that time and time again. So, but that kind of really leads into our next question, that question 3, which I think that was Michael Dotson's. How do you bridge the gap between apathy or lack of ideation and independent, innovative, creative process?
So I apologize. I've got my parakeets have decided to pick up and start chirping at me right now. So I apologize for that. They may chime in as well. They have a couple opinions about visual journals too, I guess. But the reason I put that in there was, and it's kind of the reason I wasn't necessarily playing devil's advocate on the first question, but it is one of those things that I find is an ongoing challenge that I face, and that is one of finding ways to hook my students and to motivate them. It's almost sort of like I have to, not have to, but it's a challenge for me to convince them that treating this visual journal as a visual journal is going to be more beneficial, is going to be more meaningful to them than treating it like a sketchbook. And so I almost have to do this little bit of a bait and switch. So that's why I think in a previous panel that we did, I talked about toggling between the two, because I would sort of use some what you might consider to be more traditional sketchbook types of activities where I'm leading them in a specific activity. But what we do is that may go in their sketchbook, but it becomes sort of a vehicle for something larger and more self-directed in the future. But it's a way for them to sort of see themselves in their work, even if it is guided by me, and it begins to build a little bit of their, they have a kind of a broader background. They may have not practiced certain kinds of media or certain techniques. And so they sort of add that to their toolbox so that when we get into more of the open-ended stuff, they have that confidence to really pursue those things, because there are times when I guess they just are kind of stifled, you know, they just don't, or they stick with the same motifs, you know.
I agree. I think, you know, when you find kids that are stifled too, I think there's always a way in. And I got to say, if now I've transitioned in the role from teacher to supervisor, and I go in classrooms, if I see kids that are totally disengaged and completely apathetic, like the question poses, I would put that on me as an educator. I would own that. And if I see that, it's a shame, because you got to get to know the kids. And if you really truly get to know the kids and you can find a way in, you can find a way to get them to open up about their world. And opening up about their world also means connecting them to their process. Their process may look very different than yours. And it's up to us, I believe, as educators to find that, to help them find that doorway and find what it is that sparks something that makes them want to proceed forward.
It's like what Dave was saying earlier about, you know, you aren't just sitting behind your desk, you know, and telling them what to do. It's like, I mean, if you really want to get in there and encourage them to do some really sort of unique and introspective kind of thinking, you're engaging with them on the actual stuff that they're coming up with. You're maybe even encouraging them to look at it a different way. I mean, if it's something that they like to work in a certain thing, or there's a specific image that they like to repeat, well, then how do you approach that? What are some other things that you do? And so you meet them where they're comfortable and you move them forward. I just think that in some cases, before I have that conversation, I give them a little bit of sort of context, and then I also give them a little bit more background and skill and experience. And then I'm like, hey, remember that thing that you were doing? What about that? You remember what we did? How could you maybe use that? And it's still a bit teacher guided, and there is stuff that kind of precedes it that looks very sketchbooky, but all together for them, at least like for my students who are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, I find that sort of a combination of those things is what's beginning to build sort of not only confidence, but it's also beginning to build this identity for them as artists, because the whole thing, they look at their visual journal and they're like, I'm an artist, and this is how I know.
Right. And then, you know, everything you're describing sounds more like the facilitator role than the dictator role. And then I think that for me, that's another thing. Eric and I talk about that a lot, and that's another thing that it comes back to. As the teacher, am I helping to facilitate the student's progress, or am I just telling them what to do? And I think there's a big difference there. And I as you were talking, I can just imagine the Post-it notes coming out and you know, collaborating with the student on some kind of doodle or something that they can then add to their book and help their process move forward. And I think that's, and then you sitting there saying like, well, we made one for you, now we got to make one for me. And, you know, keeping them engaged that way, that, wow, it's like what I'm making is just as important what the teacher's doing. And when you were talking about that, like lack of ideation or apathy, it's like, that's not, as the teacher, it's sort of like, how do I pull them in? What's my hook? You know, how do I get them engaged in this? And for me, it was always, my books are here, take a look if you want. And you can see all the things I'm doing, but You know, my expectation isn't that you're trying to make what I made. It's like, how boring is that going to be for me to look at 20 drawings or 20 books at the end of the semester that look all like the stuff that I'm doing? It's like, I want to see
Exactly.
I want to see what you're thinking about. How do you want to take this? What's your spin on this?
And
Right.
Dave, I think that really
understand.
ties into that fourth question, which was mine, about how can you model the visual journal
Yeah.
as a personal and art making tool for your students. And, you know, I think that's it. Like, here, let me show you what I'm doing. And I always kind of think about that, like, it's not something, as somebody mentioned it with one of the earlier questions, but practice what you teach.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and I've said this a lot about how I think that if you as a teacher are excited about something, then you will be much more, you'll take it in, and then the students get excited about it. And so
Mhm.
if it's just something like, oh yeah, like, oh, this is just a project, and oh, we're going to do visual journals, then the kids don't buy into it.
Mhm.
So I think that if you
Building
buy into it
ownership's
as
important.
an art maker, and show
Mhm.
them like, yeah, like, this is how I use it, you know, and then showing other artists, you know, how other artists and other art makers use it.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think it's, you know, building the ownership and getting them to realize you're not making this for me. I'm trying to help you see a way that you're making this for you, so that you can grow as an artist, and push that forward more than them always coming up. Is this what you wanted? Is this good enough? Is this what you're looking for? And trying to get them to put it back on them. Is that what they want? Is that what they're looking for?
I think with that though, like modeling like what creative process behavior looks like. So, and I know that we do it all the time when we're in our books, but it's like, dude, look at that thing you just did, or oh, remember
Yeah.
this. So like you're celebrating this in the moment, like, so you're pulling, like you're highlighting kids and you're showing books, and I mean, like, because the process is the excitement, right? The in it is the excitement, and so it's not like we're just all kind of, I'm just going to sit here and wait until you come up with something brilliant. That's not it. Like the brilliance is in like the yearning and the work, you know, it's like, that's what, so modeling that part, modeling an appreciation for being in, like in the moment, like really, really just opening yourself up and showing kids that, more than just, hey, here's my book, you're free to take a look at it. That's one thing, but also modeling the excitement that we all feel, like that, you know, visual journal artists feel. I mean, that's like a hook, like right there, that's a hook. Like, especially if you're highlighting kids, you're like, dude, look at Jose's thing. I mean, he's killing it over here. Then he's like, I'm killing it. And everybody knows it.
Nice.
Right.
And that feels good, you
It
know,
does.
especially because you did something you like, you got recognized for it, and you're like, I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna do more of that.
Right.
Take more chances.
Erica DeArt says for answer 3, inspiring our students and expanding what they can pull from their backpacks is what we should always be doing. We're always doing this through sharing our own work, process, steps, art history, etc., then allowing choice for them to develop. I don't think there's a question there. I just wanted to share the answer. Question 4 just started, and it's, how can you model the visual journal as a personal and art making tool for your students? Eric, did you just read this, and am I reading it again?
Yeah, no, I think we're on I think she's
Yeah, I
already
think it
close
moved
to
on to
question
5. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cool.
moved into the 31 nights prompts.
Sweet.
All right. Well, I posted a picture of my sons, and I have another one I'll put up for everybody too. My favorite prompt is obsession, and it was from part 5 of my 31 nights because it led to future works. And I think anything that, you know, it begins for me in the visual journal and then it leads to future works, it's a beautiful thing. But I posted this prompt, and it was interesting. My son was in 4th grade when he did this picture, and I asked him, I said, did the teacher pick the prompt for you? He said, no, we could do anything we wanted. We had to choose a word. He said, I chose brave. And he said he chose brave because he was faced with, you know, a lot of stuff. I mean, like I mentioned, we're lighting it up blue tonight for Autism Awareness Month. And he's had to deal with his share of struggles in schools. And he said, I'm brave every day because I have to go to school and fight through these things. And he worked it out through this artwork. If had he not completed this artwork and brought it home to me for me to see, I never would have known he was still struggling with this, and never would have had to change his school and do all these things that I had to do much later behind the scenes. But it all started with the art. It all started with that, the artwork led me to that place where I realized that there was something deeper going on that I needed to really help him with. So for me, that's where the power of the prompt is. It's just more powerful than anything in the planet. And I'll see if I can post a picture of one of my favorites that, a process that led to the product, as I'm retweeting a bunch of this stuff here that I see online. Everybody's tweeting.
Mhm.
How do you guys feel about the power of the prompt?
Oh, actually, I'm just tweeting that right now because I like that quote. I think that's, even like in a general way, is kind of speaks to teaching in general. So like, and not like having some kind of prompt that kids can respond to, kind of goes back to Michael Dotson's question about, the apathy and stuff. And if you have a prompt, then it gives a little bit of guidance. It helps facilitate.
Mhm.
And so I think, and I use that a lot. So whether it's something, I used to use big ideas a lot. And I look at a lot of that stuff from the 31 Nights as, a lot of them are very big ideas, very kind of vague notions that there's no one like correct way, one correct thing to do. And so it kind of helps open up the imagination and the creativity with it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and
Hey,
I think too with prompts, sometimes that the demo you do. So if you're just trying to show them some materials, um, watercolor pencil, watercolor paint, something like that, that technique or that skill becomes a prompt too. Okay, show me what you want to do with that. So it can be something kind of conceptual, sort of that idea of obsession, or uh, the concept of identity, or other big ideas, whether we get into paradox or things like that. But um, just the understanding that that prompt could be conceptual. Maybe the prompt, like the thing that Michael Bell shared earlier, with the student using him as a reference to a piece of research, that became the prompt for her. You were the prompt, and she tried to figure out like what to do about that. So I think looking at that, there's a way that the prompt could come from multiple perspectives. It doesn't necessarily just have to be, here's this idea, what do you think about that? But maybe here's a technique, here's this person, take a look at what this person does. What does that prompt you to do? Thinking about it in all those aspects can be interesting.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who's not a Twitter person either, but is a teacher. She just sent me this text because I think she's watching the YouTube part of it. And but she said, and by the way, she says, hi, Sam, it's Shannon. She said it'd be great to address online learning. How can the process journal be, or the visual journal be used in that environment? I feel like you do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I just did all those live feeds through Facebook to demonstrate, and so it's kind of almost like traditional, like, here, let me demonstrate some things, but I do it in such a kind of an open way that I don't dictate, and like, here's what I've been doing. And so I did a series. It was 10 different live stream tutorials that were like 30 minutes to 40 minutes each. So I think that's one way, is just like you might do a video or a tutorial, but then also getting into, I think sharing. I think being able to maybe have a classroom where you can have kids share and hold up their journals and stuff could be a way to do it as well. To like Michael, like you were talking about, like the kids, like you're celebrating each other. So
Yeah.
being able to help celebrate what the kids are doing
I'm
at
thinking
home.
like because as a teacher, like right now in K-12, and with all of this, all of these things that are happening with us and how we're gonna be starting up school online, I could imagine a classroom like on Zoom like actually showing work and talking about work and sort of
Hmm.
responding back and forth. Like how that would be like in real time, like where you're actually showing it up,
Yeah.
or you're taking a picture and putting it up. So then you've got like, you could even use Google Classroom where it goes live and like you can actually show, like you've basically got this quilt of stuff going on and people are seeing it and talking about it.
Yeah,
then
I'll
that's
address
obviously-
that from a supervisor's standpoint. We've had a
Okay.
lot of discussions about this, and I think Google Classroom is definitely going to be the way to do it through a closed forum. It's not a social media forum. It's not a public forum. It's not a place where kids have another sign-on access. Zoom has become a hot topic of conversation, and I'll speak personally from our district where right now we're steering clear of Zoom between teacher and student. We're just for teacher to teacher, it's great. And it does have some really valuable access where you can share screens and such, but there's too many privacy issues. I mean, it's just like what we did on our first Zoom chat that was public. I mean, how it got text bombed so quickly and there was all this stuff surrounding it. So until Zoom cleans up their privacy issues, I think Google Classroom might be the way to go, and Google Meet and creating some virtual sketchbook sharing and virtual prompts where you have to protect teachers as well. And I'm very adamant and very active about that. I want to protect my people as well as be able to reach out and embrace the kids that need us the most too during this virtual transition, which is so important. They need us more than ever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think a lot of school systems are moving away or not allowing Zoom because of those privacy issues.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's definitely something that I think a lot of schools and places are trying to figure out.
You know, I think Zoom is working really hard to close this gap to both allow for the flexibility of a more democratic platform, but also to um, uh, put many more features in. I know there was just an update that happened that caused some friction with my system that I just got nailed together. And, you know, we're operating on Zoom tonight. I think, you know, once you figure that out and you know how to like get rid of people who come into it, and, you know, I think it's like ding dong ditch, you know, you drop some poo on somebody's front doorstep, you lay it on fire and you go stamp
Stamp
on it. You know, when we were kids in the physical world, I think that was a very common thing. And if I was a 15-year-old kid, I can't say that I wouldn't be doing the same thing and bombing chats too and causing trouble. Would I be saying the same things? Would I be doing the same things? Probably not, but I know I would be a jerk. I know I was a jerk. And in some ways that might've been karma for what happened to our chat. But
Thanks, Sam.
You were a jerk? You mean
as
not anymore?
usual, I will take the blame. It's okay. But I just want to say that Zoom has been working really hard to like fix these problems as a company, and that it's not all bad. And I think a lot of what they've done, you know, to like fix the platform and put new features and control out there really quick has been awesome. In the control bar now, there's a support feature. You can do live transcripts. You can do reactions so that they're adding in emojis and that sort of thing. You can set up polls and ask people questions. The managed participants has gotten a lot stronger. So, you know, for what we're doing tonight, I think it really works. For what we were doing last week, you know, we had trouble, but I think we were able to get that under control for the most part. And you know, like any platform, I think it's new, it's figuring itself out as we are. And there's this like thing between like what's authoritarian control and what's a democratic platform, and how do you allow for that? You know, I think that's going to have bugs no matter how it happens. And we're in a very unique time. I think as fast as Zoom is responding, they should be applauded for that. Is it perfect? No. And I agree, Michael, that, you know, the thing's got to get fixed. And for public education, there's got to be obviously more control. But for adult conversation and discussion, I think there's some room for this to happen as those bugs are tweaked out.
There are, and I think that, you know, I'm a firm proponent of listen, at some given point in time, we've got to trust our educators to be educators. I mean, they're in the classroom with kids all by themselves, taking care of business and doing amazing things. Yet we don't allow a face-to-face teleconferencing. And I get it. There's a lot of privacy issues. There's a lot of other stuff, but it's funny. Dave told me this once. I'll never forget it. I don't know if you remember this, Dave, when we were starting up I think we were doing a PD,
Right.
and it was before I took over the supervisor position. And the supervisor at the time, I was teaching, and they stood up, and you're getting ready to go on, and they talk about how they want everybody to get creative and everybody to do all this innovative stuff and risk taking, all these great buzzwords. And then they follow it up with, but here's where we need to be very careful, and we can't do this, and this. And I remember you leaning over to me and saying, how can risk taking start with censorship?
Right. Yeah. That was that
remember
first
that?
one. Yeah, it was
I
that
don't want to
first one.
call anything out or anybody out, but you remember that, right?
Yeah, that was at that in-between space. We had already done some work, and then somebody came in and had this, and it's just sort of, how do you get to the tipping point if you can't even figure out like where that boundary is?
Yeah, and so now I think we need to blaze some new trails, and I know teachers are out there figuring it out, and they're finding innovative ways, and I would love to find out how everybody out there is navigating, even interacting and having some critiques with visual journals, with doing some things
Right.
where you can't be with your students, where you're sitting at home, you're remote. Students
Yeah,
are
I'm gonna have a class coming up starting the middle of May. It's gonna be a visual journal class, and I'm pretty much resigning myself to the fact it's gonna be all online.
yeah.
And so I think there are gonna be either Google Classroom or Zoom meetings to start the class with and kind of taking some ideas from Eric with some demos. We've done some PowerPoints, things like that I can show the students some things and say, go ahead and start working on that. Then it's going to be all about uploading imagery of things that you've done, and then hoping that there's a way to maybe they record their own video. It's upload a video of your,
Interesting thing that
5
came up
minutes
today
about showing your work. Yeah.
in a meeting that might help you. And I don't know if how much Google Meet has this availability to be able to do this, because Zoom, where you can share your screen. The cool thing is you could share a PowerPoint, and then you could share a link.
Yeah.
So you could share, what the cool thing is, you could share somebody's sketchbook, or somebody could come on the screen and do a live, showing of a few pages or whatever they're working on. But then you could share a link to a Google document that's a live Google document that everybody has access to, and everybody could just chime in with their feedback right then and there, very similar to like the chat feature. You could even do that in the chat in Zoom, and then save the chat and share that feedback out later. So I'm just trying to think of some innovative ways that you could do this and be able to provide some measurable feedback to kids.
Yeah,
Maybe that would be the way.
Two things really quickly.
Yeah.
First, this ties into our last question. What is the challenges art educators working remotely during COVID-19 or after? We can speculate on ideas. What solutions do you have so far? So this ties right into what you're talking about, Michael. I also want to reach out and say thank you to the K-12 Art Chat family and everybody who's joining in on this, the creativity department, and the Grunlers. This is so generous of you, and we appreciate the opportunity to do this chat. Shannon McBride just texted me, Michael, and she said, glad we're talking about these issues. It's uncharted territory, and that we should record this stuff for teachers to use as reference. Shannon, this will be recorded here live on the Draw and Play Here YouTube channel, so feel free to use it in your classroom as you get permission. We tried to keep the foul language to a minimum so that you're capable.
Hey, one of the things I wanted to like kind of get in though is one of the things I'm looking forward to, and in fact, I've already had the opportunity to do it with 2 different groups, but is the way that like going online with our teaching and our planning is also going to sort of encourage us, allow us, facilitate it, whatever you might call that, to be able to collaborate and engage with teachers like anywhere. Like, because you tend, like, I know that like when you become physical space aware, you sort of, at least I know myself, I gravitate towards the teachers in my state and the people in my district who I work with. But now everybody is in my, I mean, everybody's in my area. Like it's, I mean, so it's sort of, that's what's going to be exciting. Like all of you have never felt closer because everybody feels equally close and equally far away now. So
Yeah.
ideas, the flow of ideas, and like perspectives from different parts of the country and the world. I mean, the way that those can potentially impact the way that we deliver or the way that we sort of alter how we introduce and encourage students in this creative process with the visual journals is pretty exciting to me. I mean, just the potential for that is like creatively explosive to me in some ways.
Mhm.
I like that, creatively explosive.
Yeah.
That's what we all
Yeah,
need
I
to
want
do.
to, on that same note, like the idea of correspondence art, since we're hosting next week, and we'll be talking about correspondence art, collaboration, correspondence art, participatory artworks, all the
Collaboration art.
possibilities that are involved with this. These can all be possible solutions to this COVID-19 crisis. And as Michael's talking about this and we're speculating on ideas, I just want to make a shout out again to the Grundlers. Thank you so much. But to how we're hosting K-12 Art Chat next week, same bat time, same bat channel, and we hope to see you all here.
All right, beautiful.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. Collaboration art next week.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right, guys. Good talk.
Good night, everyone.